What is up, Swim Team Nation? It's your host, DJ Super Swim Star here. Recently, two of YouTube's biggest creators have gone to war, sending YouTube into another perpetual drama cycle. But we're not here to talk about that. Instead, we're going to talk about the unwritten laws of YouTube, their ramifications, and how both parties involved, and even more of the most popular YouTubers on the platform, have broken them all. So without further ado, let's get right into the rules! In the world of YouTube, there's a list of unwritten rules which creators are expected to abide by.
The code is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
These aren't laws by any means, but they are a set of cultural standards that creators are expected to adhere to. And when the YouTube drama cycle begins to blossom, creators often start ignoring those rules, and the consequences of ignoring those rules often ends up negatively impacting the rest of the community. Now let me say this, my opinion is that YouTube drama should stay on YouTube. When it starts affecting the real world, that's when we all need to take a step away from the keyboard. And I believe that the need to keep YouTube drama on YouTube is one of the main reasons this set of standards has developed over the years. It's group preservation. We already know that legacy media doesn't respect us.
You know, watching another person play video games is like going to a restaurant and having someone eat your food for you.
We know that Google doesn't give a damn about us.
What's unfair is that YouTube has clearly put their hands on the levers to make it literally easier for traditional media to get on trending.
And we know that the commentary vultures in our own community are ready to feast at the first sign of blood, regardless of validity or who's in the right or wrong.
Drama's more popular than content.
So the only people left to take care of grassroots YouTube are grassroots YouTubers. And that's why these unwritten rules function as a sort of Geneva Convention for keeping things from getting too out of hand. But what happens when two of the largest grassroots YouTubers, two of the largest influencers on the platform, throw out those rules and go to war? We've seen it happen before, and it always ends badly. Now, I'm not attacking the beef, but I am attacking the way that both sides built it. And in doing so, I'm going to catalog the ways that both sides have violated these cultural rules, and give you even more examples of how other YouTubers have violated those rules in the past, and I'll also let you know what these rules are. That way, if you ever get lucky enough to reach these levels of success, you don't repeat the same mistakes that others did. These are the unwritten laws of YouTube culture.
Any YouTuber mentioned in this video is just for context. I am not dragging these people. It's just for context. Full disclaimer, guys. Just context. No, for real, it is just context.
Now, copyright striking seems like the most obvious place to start.
Can we copy strike PewDiePie's latest video?
Copyright striking is a really underhanded tactic, as it often makes it seem like the aggressor is trying to censor information about themselves, leading to a sort of Streisand effect.
Have you heard of the Barbara Streisand effect? This woman tried to sue a photographer for taking a picture of her house. And by suing this photographer, you may see where I'm going here. Everyone found out this picture of the house, which was the opposite of what she wanted.
This usually applies when one YouTuber uses clips of another YouTuber to criticize or make fun of them. This can apply to embarrassing moments or revealing information, but it seems to almost always backfire on the person trying to hide something. But not only that, the other danger of copyright striking videos is that if a channel accumulates 3 strikes in a short period of time, the channel can be taken down entirely. The most obvious examples of copyright strike abuse I can think of are when Suzy Liu recently copyright striked a lot of YouTubers that were criticizing her, when Alinity copyright struck PewDiePie, and the infamous Matt Haas vs H3 lawsuit, where Ethan and Hila actually went to court and had a precedent-setting case that proved that censorship like this isn't just immoral, but also illegal as well. Copyright striking almost always backfires on the aggressor, and I don't think that it warrants any further discussion given the ramifications of the rules are much more minimal than the others. So, moving on. Much like Peter Parker, Clark Kent, or Miley Stewart, many YouTubers choose to keep their personal names and private lives hidden from the eyes of prying viewers. There are a lot of privacy concerns that might lead to someone wanting to hide their identity, but one of the major ones is the risk of family or friends being attacked as a way to get to them.
Here's an example of what my DocSpin looks like. It has my name, birthday, home address, all of my phone numbers, my parents' phone numbers, and my parents' home address. This is released with the express purpose of harassing and often leads to swatting as well.
Doxing can lead to a lot of different things. Anything from getting pizza sent to your house, identity theft, or, as a worst case scenario, swatting. But we'll talk more about swatting later. Doxing can either be done on purpose as an attack, or accidentally, like when Jake Paul doxed Post Malone's address after failing to censor it in a video where he showed up to Post's home uninvited. But on the other hand, intentional doxing is a tactic that's as old as the internet and even predates YouTube and Twitch's rise to prominence. You can say what you may about Ethan, but at least he hasn't tried to threaten someone's life and privacy by leaking their information.
So after I criticised Keemstar, Twitter pretty much devolved into a battleground. The fallen god of Olympus would randomly, with little to no context, start attacking me and posting private, I repeat, private, pictures of me on his Twitter.
So what caused Keemstar to go on a personal attack against Pyro? Well, Keemstar had uploaded a video accusing Toby Turner of being a rapist. Pyro responded to Keemstar's video and said this was only speculation, and Keemstar should have made it more apparent that it was only speculation.
But still, Keemstar invaded my privacy. Some of these pictures never left my personal Facebook page. So I was then forced to close my Facebook account, knowing that people like Keemstar were willing to go so low as to leak private pictures of individuals just to get back at them.
And what's worse is that Keem even admits to it.
Here he is admitting to doxing him.
I doxed him. What are you gonna do about it? I'm literally telling you right now, what do you think's gonna happen to me? You said to Augie this is gonna be a big story that Keemstar doxed Destiny. I doxed Destiny. Where is the big story? Yeah, I dox people all the time.
Like I said before, when worse comes to worse, doxing often leads to swatting. But there's often a step in between doxing and swatting that goes unmentioned. As a way to absolve themselves of guilt, a lot of the time after dropping someone's dox information, they'll try to get their audience to go after that person and use that information against them. This is called a personal army attack. As an extension of the prior rule, it's frowned upon to use your audience as your own personal mob to attack whoever you deem worthy of it. It's for this exact reason that a lot of YouTubers include disclaimers to not go harass or vilify the subjects of their videos. Now, not everyone who uses their audience as their personal army is a doxer, but the harassment incurred by a personal army attack can still have long-lasting ramifications even if their dox doesn't get leaked.
1.5 years later, describing how this one mishap on Keemstar's drama alert ended up with years of endless harassment for him. Have a listen.
One time I had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people threatened to kill my family, harassing my sister, my nephew. Anyway, I sent a little Twitter out that I just said, Keemstar, just so you know, your BS a year and a half ago still causes me trouble every day.
And sometimes personal army attacks lead to blatant witch hunting.
This was witch hunting. It's making assumptions based on very little information and evidence, and demanding extreme action be taken in response.
Like in the case of the Twitch streamer Emily is Pro, who was harassed vehemently after a vicious rumor circulated that she had faked having cancer.
It must have been 3 or 4 years ago that Emily is Pro told her stream she was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia,
also known as CLL, a type of cancer which usually doesn't do much harm, but it can cause complications by weakening the immune system. In comes Sun on Old School, a Twitch streamer who is now permanently banned on Twitch, who out of nowhere, without any evidence, decided to start a rumor. This rumor being that Emily faked having cancer. This is where the hate started growing. This is where the hive mind began. This is where the groupthink started. Because she chose to ignore the issue completely, the idea spread like wildfire. Very quickly, the false claim became a fake fact. I'm not exaggerating when I say at least 90% of the community believe this rumor is a hard and undeniable fact, despite there being no evidence of her denying she had cancer.
What's worse is that when someone instigates a personal army attack, bad actors from that personal army could leak details about the target of the attack or resort to tactics that the aggressor who instigated it wouldn't agree with. And that in turn makes the aggressor look bad once the personal army begins using underhanded tactics that the aggressor wouldn't normally agree with. And it's for that exact reason that if you make a video on any sort of public figure who's guilty of any kind of wrongdoing, It's crucial that you include disclaimers asking your audience not to harass or attack the subjects of your video. But circling back around to what I said before, when people do drop dox information in combination with personal army attacks, it almost inevitably leads to swatting every time. Swatting often serves as an extension of the prior two rules, where the aggressor drops private information about their victim, and then their audience uses that information to initiate a SWAT attack.
If you don't know what swatting is, it's the act of prank calling the police and telling them that there's a hostage situation, murder, shooting, bomb, anything that causes the SWAT team to respond with an automatic weapon at someone's house.
The goals of swatting can differ from case to case. Maybe they want to see the person get swatted while they're on stream, or maybe they just want to feel some sort of power over their victim and revel in their suffering. But regardless, the effect on the victim is pretty much always the same.
The police show up with their guns drawn. There's like multiple helicopters with their lights on the house. And then they left our gate. The police left our gate open and Shredder got out. It was
awful. It was traumatizing. It was absolutely awful. We weren't home, but Shredder was home, and we immediately started driving back. And while we were driving back, we were watching the cameras
on the ring.
They were just walking around the house with huge guns out and helicopters, and we saw them leaving the gates open, and I just knew Shredder was gonna get out, and then he did, and we saw it on camera, and we just saw him walk out, and then we had no idea what happened, and we had to drive like that home for 10 minutes. I thought that we will never see him again.
He was so scared. He was just wandering out like so.
And it traumatized him too, because of the police. They were walking around the house for a while with their walkie-talkies, and it was really loud, and now whenever he hears someone on the phone, he's like traumatized from the noise.
It's a violation of privacy and a way to violate the sanctity of the victim's home. It sends the message that they aren't safe, and that the aggressor could do it again at any time. It's a total power trip move that egomaniacs use to exert fear and maintain control over their victim. On top of the fact that swatting is illegal and can land the aggressor behind bars, it can also have other repercussions. It's a waste of time for first responders and can delay them if they're needed elsewhere, and it can be traumatizing to young children who might live with the victim of the attack. And in a worst case scenario, a trigger-friendly pig might get spooked and kill an innocent person or pet, all because of a bad actor millions of miles away who sought out vengeance over petty internet drama.
The defendant in California sentenced to 20 years in prison for making phony 911 calls across the country. One of those calls leading to the deadly police shooting of an innocent man about 1,400 miles away.
Yeah, it happened. There was a guy out of Kansas, Andrew Finch, who wasn't even a gamer. The wrong address was given to their address. He got swatted, and the cop thought he was pulling out a weapon, and he got shot.
Sarah Burlap has admitted to swatting, calling authorities and triggering SWAT teams across the country to surround the homes of unwitting victims. Police swarmed Andrew Finch's home, an innocent man with no connection to the game. He was shot and killed by police who thought he was reaching for a gun.
Going after sponsors or advertisers is generally considered a low-blow tactic. This method is often used by the media when a YouTuber gets into any kind of controversy. But the downside here is that when you attack advertisers or sponsors, it often ends up adversely affecting everyone on the platform at once.
Pump the brakes on the contacting advertisers. That is not going to solve the problem. That's just going to injure YouTube, like potentially fatally. Matt just kept dismissing anything that YouTubers were saying to him about, like, don't contact advertisers, like, don't do this yet. That's the nuclear option.
Like when Wall Street Journal went after PewDiePie's advertisers, causing the first adpocalypse, which resulted in lower ad rates and less ads for everyone across the platform. The same method would be used no less than 2 years later by Matt Watson, proving that you didn't even have to be a journalist to make this work. Anyone with a loud enough voice and a large enough personal army could get the job done, and simultaneously negatively impact every creator all across the platform all at once.
It became clear that Matt wanted to cause maximum damage to YouTube. He wanted a complete boycott from advertisers.
There is a link to every single advertiser that appears and their contact information that I was able to pull up. So you can find all this information. Guys, please contact them.
He started asking his viewers to contact the companies that advertise on YouTube and demand that they respond to his video. So like the gun was pointed at YouTube's head, and Matt was not satisfied with that. He was pulling the trigger.
That hits them where it hurts. Yes.
YouTubers rely on sponsorships and ad revenue in order to make being a full-time YouTuber possible. So when you go after advertisers or sponsors with the intention of impacting another YouTuber's income, you actually end up negatively impacting everyone's income, whether that's intentional or not. Most recently, Ethan Klein broke this rule, mentioning one of Keemstar's primary sponsors repeatedly in an exposed video.
In Ethan's content nuke, he mentions Keemstar's sponsor G Fuel 8 times, constantly saying things like, "Why is G Fuel sponsoring you? They shouldn't be sponsoring you. This is kind of fucked up that you still have sponsors. How is this possible?" It's a very slippery slope that can get out of control very quickly. So sticking with Keemstar losing G Fuel. Well, him losing G Fuel wasn't enough for the bloodlust of the fanbase. Now on the subreddit, they're taking action against Spotify because Keemstar is on Spotify, so now they're lobbying and spamming Spotify to drop Keemstar. Giving that much power to a mob mentality and cancel culture is super dangerous, especially on a platform like YouTube. And what this does is that tells everyone else on YouTube with a following they can do the same thing because these advertisers are going to cave to pressure. It's very similar to the most recent YouTube adpocalypse where Matt got a bunch of people together to contact advertisers on YouTube and telling them to drop, which they eventually did, and that fucked a ton of YouTubers and destroyed a lot of YouTube careers.
Though I do think it's worth pointing out that G Fuel never really left Keemstar because of this, but Keemstar left G Fuel as a way to get out in front of the situation. Whether Ethan is responsible for that or not is up to you to decide. This may be the most vague topic and the most contested, but I still think it's the most relevant. Mental health is taken very seriously by the YouTube community. Whether that's because of many creators' openness on the topic, or because of the commonality of YouTube burnout, or just because of moral decency. Making any sort of misstep in terms of discussing mental health can be a detrimental blow to a YouTuber's reputation.
Just think some topics, you either do them right, or you just don't touch them.
When YouTubers misspeak on mental health, or on any topic really, they risk spreading misinformation that can double down on already negative stigmas associated with illness. This is a common criticism that was leveraged towards Shane Dawson's Jake Paul series.
Now Shane talks about sociopaths in this series and tries to answer the question, is Jake Paul a sociopath? Now, this video rubbed me the wrong way and a lot of other people, but when you're talking about mental health, you kind of have to be more responsible than that. The video constantly uses this bizarre stock footage edits in them with this creepy background music.
Another criticism leveraged towards Shane, Philip DeFranco, Boogie2988, and many more YouTubers were the sponsorship deals that they took from BetterHelp.
What's wrong with BetterHelp then? You can have online therapy without leaving your house. You can have therapy at home. That's great. That sounds almost too good to be true. Well, yes, because it is.
Well, BetterHelp targeted a certain brand of YouTubers, the individuals who are seen as the moral bastions of the platforms. These individuals have built special relationships with their fans, and unlike the Jake Pauls of this generation, they deal with more mature subjects.
However, in their own terms of service, they acknowledge it is not a complete substitute for face-to-face examination and for a session by a licensed qualified professional. So it's marketed as a cheaper substitute for therapy, when in reality, it's a luxury. It's an addition to therapy.
When YouTubers push shady services like BetterHelp, they risk their own audience's well-being, all while profiting off of whatever issues their audience may be facing.
A lot of reviews have spoken about this, saying that their counselors was really questionable.
I never actually received any therapy. We just kept setting appointments and he just kept missing them and not giving me any warning or any real reason, and was really unprofessional in his messages.
For some reason, I recognized that it was a bad idea taking money for a mental health issue. And how so many YouTubers fail to recognize this is just beyond me. Or maybe it shouldn't be. There's over 100 YouTubers who have promoted BetterHelp, and YouTubers should not take a deal that gives them money per sign up if it's for mental health, or at the very least then disclaim that.
And finally, Ethan from H3 has made a lot of comments on mental illness and medication in the past. So he's definitely not immune from criticism here, but I do think it's worth noting that he's later went back on some of those statements and kind of changed his views on them. But at the same time, when Fousey had a public breakdown, Ethan wasn't exactly hesitant to lay into the guy despite his obvious mental breakdown. And neither did Keemstar, who went as far as to make a 3-part documentary on Fousey's breakdown, all while constantly denying that the guy was even having a breakdown.
He just told me that he made a fucking music.
Let me just speak for a second, for a good second, and don't interrupt me, okay? We're not talking about someone who's all there right now, okay? He's fucking going through a manic episode, 1,000,000,000,000%.
I don't know if that's true.
1,000,000,000%.
This is how he's doing. This is a business fucking.
And even pushing the theory that this was all a publicity stunt. And all of this serves as an extension of Keem's belief that mental illness isn't real.
Drug companies invent all these illnesses so they could sell drugs to morons. Social anxiety 100% is a fake invented illness, so they could sell you drugs and make millions. Stop being weak. Society is literally going to die if you keep this bullshit up.
There's no doubt in my mind that that affected the way that Keemstar approached the Fousey situation. And unfortunately, history ended up repeating itself. Keemstar actually ended up pushing those same theories in regards to Etika.
Arguably aided to the mental deterioration of obviously mentally ill individuals by continuing to poke at them and prod at them and then be very hypocritical and two-faced when he talks about them and to them.
He even had Etika on Drama Alert and took advantage of Etika's clear manic state, knowing that he could profit from it. And when it was later revealed that Etika had actually ended his own life, Keemstar flipped his narrative entirely and tried to rewrite history and act as though he had been Etika's ally all along.
What's happening on YouTube with YouTube drama? Are we going to continue to exploit people with mental illnesses? Are we going to continue to rush to judgment and accuse people of things that they maybe didn't do? Are people going to be allowed to still accuse people of fraud without any proof? Are we going to need to take legal action? These are like actual, no matter how you feel about the video, good conversations to have about YouTube.
When YouTubers don't take mental health seriously, be it their own or someone else's, the consequences can be deadly. And I don't think I need to say much more here. In the past, I used to be a big fan of both brands, watching nearly every H3 and Drama Alert episode. But in the past year, I've stopped watching the H3 podcast and Drama Alert. Maybe that's because I grew out of the content, or maybe it's because the content presented in both has failed to evolve alongside the rest of YouTube. But nonetheless, the drama between these two man-children succeeded in getting me interested in both H3 podcast and Drama Alert again for the first time in months. I hate to say it, but virus might have been the best thing to happen to H3 in years. Their new videos have been a return to form, and they've really made me fall in love with Ethan and Neela's brand of content all over again. But regardless of whose side you're on, just remember, YouTube drama should stay on YouTube. Criticize and attack the content, not the person. And at the end of the day,
it don't matter. None of this matters.
I appreciate everyone taking the time to watch this video. I don't usually delve into YouTube commentary, but this was a situation that I just couldn't stop thinking about. But because it's a somewhat new form of content for the channel, I'm curious to hear what you thought of it. So please, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, because it really helps the video get seen by a wider audience. And if you'd like to see more Super Swim Team 7, you can subscribe and ring that bell, or check out my TV Man video here. And to keep up with me on a more frequent basis, you can always follow me at Super Swim Team 7 on Twitter. So with all that being said, I've been Swim Prime, signing off.